What's up, everybody? Shauna D Man here, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you guys had yourselves a great weekend, getting ready for the week. This is a different video than I typically do. It's been a while since I've done these kind of videos, mainly because of me changing things up with the channel, starting a second channel, that kind of thing. So it has been a while since I've done a video like this, but I kind of wanted to talk about nothing really deep diving or anything like that, but I wanted to talk about the current state of not necessarily, well, I guess both Star Wars and the Star Wars community, because it's a mess right now, and I'm curious to see on what direction things go here on out. Now, first and foremost, let me be relatively clear. A lot of this really started this past week, but it has been going on for quite some time. Sorry. Um, Mainly because of Star Wars: The Acolyte. Um, that show has somehow been so divisive amongst people, and I've been pretty much consistent in my stance when it comes to this show that it's not a good show. It's very average. Like at least like a 5 out of 10. Like, I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it. Now there are people who love the show. I mean, good for them. That's fine. They can love it. I don't care that they love the show. There are people who hated it, and a lot of people had valid reasons. But I think the majority of people who probably didn't hate it, or I'm sorry, who did hate it, were trolls just looking to cause issue. Now there are valid, points and things like that from both sides, the people who loved the show and people who hated the show. But the show itself, um, I'm not going to go too much in it because I did do a podcast episode about this show about maybe 2 weeks ago, and then on my other channel where we do reactions and things like that, I did a week by week review of the show. So I have my thoughts about the show over on that channel as well. But I've been pretty good at staying away from the overall toxicity of the fan base that's going on right now from both, and it's both sides. I'm not there's blame to go around with both sides. I'm not singling out a single side. From what I've seen from the people who enjoyed the Acolyte, the people who didn't like the Acolyte, I both sides have been relatively awful about this whole thing. So it came out last week that I believe it was Deadline came out last week and said that the show was basically canceled. Now a lot of people weren't sure about it because it wasn't an official there wasn't an official, Disney or Lucasfilm statement about it, but Disney typically does this kind of thing. They never really come out and say, "Oh, we effed up." They typically don't do that. There's certain occasions where they do, but in situations like this is something where they probably just somebody in the upper management of things probably sent this out to Deadline, because a lot of people said Deadline's is a pretty reliable news outlet. So that came out, and then all of a sudden it's just a slew of comments, people supporting the show, people, you know, cheering for that it's canceled and things like that. And I'm just over here like, okay, show's canceled. Because here's the thing. There have been plenty of shows in the past that have been canceled after one season. This isn't relatively new. So after the news of it was was canceled, it probably took at least 2 days. I think it was canceled on a Tuesday. So by Thursday, there was already hashtags going, renew the Acolyte, hashtag save the Acolyte, petitions going, and things like that. Um, the the decision's more than likely already made, or it technically, it's not even that the decision is already made. This decision was probably already made well ahead of time of this being leaked out to deadline. Like this isn't something that they just dropped and gave. Like obviously the show ended about 2 months ago or so. I would say because they have the numbers, they can see the viewership, they can probably see week by week viewership of the show, and probably at a certain point during the show they realize at the current rate that it's going, it's not gonna end well. So because I've seen people talk about different metrics and things like that, talking about like for instance, it was the lowest rated season finale. Um, I don't know about all that. It's just I don't get too much into that kind of stuff. There's better people who's better at explaining it to me, so I'll just leave it to them. Um, but from the overall understanding is that the viewership was not there, and the viewership. Now I watched every episode each week. Like I said, I did a week by week review of it. I went into each week. I went into the episode fresh minded, dumped everything that happened last week, even if it was idiotic or whatever. I went in with a fresh mind and said, okay, let's see what we got this weekend. It was basically the same thing. I never really enjoyed anything about the show, but I did give it a chance, and I think a lot of people gave it a chance. It just wasn't. It just wasn't for them. Um, and then there's just been a lot of hot takes out there on the internet, and it's the internet. It is what it is. Um, because my issue is when it came to this show, you have you had the anti acolyte people who didn't like it, who probably gave actual criticism of the show, but their voices were being overshadowed by people who probably were just genuinely didn't like the show and was just trolling this kind of stuff. And because of it, the pro acolyte people started to lump all that together, and they just started calling people incels. They started calling people racist, homophobic, and all that stuff. Now keep in mind, I didn't like the show. So now, so this was early on, and I'll get into the current things of things in a minute. But early on, it was all lumped together. If you didn't like the show, you didn't like the show because you didn't like seeing a woman of color starring as a star lead. You didn't like this, and this. When none of those things that I had issues with the show with matter. They don't matter to me. What matters to me is a good story, well written characters that I want to root for. There is nobody in the Acolyte that I wanted to root for, that I wanted to see the best possible outcome for. There was just nobody in the show, and it was just kind of like, so what's the lesson here? What's the lesson that we could take from the Acolyte and apply it to our daily lives? Because there are some shows, some movies that have the ability to do that have the ability to project a message, but do it in a very productive way where you can take something from that show or movie and be like, you know what? I could probably apply this to my life, or somebody could apply it to her life, that kind of thing. So let's fast forward to now. Now, content creators are starting to separate the two. The people who had valid criticisms and the people who are just there just to call, just to be hateful, that kind of stuff. Now they're starting to separate the two. But to me, the damage was already done. It was already done when you didn't stop and consider who was what, or who was complaining about what about this show at the beginning. If you would have stopped and considered and actually looked at the evidence. Now, obviously, there's more to it than some people are just saying, bad writing. Um, it's subjective. Everybody knows that. So, uh, but it's just now there people are coming out and starting to separate and differentiate the two. That there are people who had who had a fair right to be criticizing the show the way it was. To criticism is not bad the way people made it out to be. Criticism helps challenge the people behind the scenes on pushing out a better product. Because, like I said, this was not a good show. This show could have been better. There were some nice little elements in it that I enjoyed, but the show could have been better. But this whole thing that was going on during the Acolyte, where you had people who are pro Acolyte telling fans of the show if they don't like it, they don't have to watch it. And guess what? They didn't watch it. The viewership of the show went down. That cost Disney money. Now I will be honest. I have been guilty of that, of telling people if they don't like a show, then don't watch it. I have been guilty. I've been very guilty about it because you're listening to a guy who enjoyed the Halo series on Paramount Plus. I actually enjoyed it. I knew what it was. I knew what it wasn't. But I enjoyed for what it was trying to do. I had no issues with that. And so now it's just born facts. And like I said, there's been a lot of hot takes that I don't agree with. So a lot of people have been putting out statements like, oh, if Clone Wars came out today, it wouldn't have got a season 1. It wouldn't have survived today's climate. You can't do stuff like that. You can't pull stuff from 20 years ago and try to apply it to today's time and standards, because there is a massive difference. Now, let's take the Clone Wars series, for instance. A lot of people are talking about that, how the first couple of seasons were shaky, but you know what? People gave it a chance and it got better as the series went on. Yes. However, there is a difference, because one of the things that I've seen most people talk about when it comes to the Clone Wars series, George Lucas was basically financing that stuff himself. Number 2, it was on network television. Each season had about 22 episodes. Number 3, because it was on network television, it was essentially paid for already because of things called ads. We see it now. So the show was never really in a state of being canceled technically, because again, George Lucas, this was before he sold everything off to Disney. Yeah, I think he did that in 2015. This is before he did all that to Disney. So he was footing the bill for the show to be made. Each show had 22 episodes. It was on network television where they could run ads to also supplement some of that payment to the show. So you can't compare something like that with a 8 episode streaming service where there's no ads being played. The only money it's coming from are the subscribers and probably like investors, that kind of thing. Because the show was $180 million. Okay. So there's a massive difference. And I saw people trying to compare Breaking Bad to The Acolyte. Again, now, yes, I think Breaking Bad had 7 or 8 episodes. It was on network television as well. But the majority of people watched the first season of Breaking Bad. So, like, again, you got to be careful what you're trying to compare this show to. And I made a tweet, not tweet. I made a TikTok the other weekend talking about if we are making the claim. Okay, here's what bothers me, because if we are making the claim that a TV show needs more than one season to find its footing, why didn't the Book of Boba Fett get a season 2? Where was the campaigning for the Book of Boba Fett to get a season 2? Because everybody's been pretty. Everybody can agree when it comes to that particular show, it's not good, but there are a lot of elements behind the scenes that didn't help the show be good. So again, we can make the argument that Boba Fett was a rocky first season because he had the introduction. We brought back, or they added the Mandalorian and Grogu. You had Luke Skywalker in there. You had Ahsoka in there. I think you had even R2 in there. So you had these other characters mixed in with the Book of Boba Fett. So he never had his full show, in my honest opinion. So where's the campaigning for the Book of Boba Fett to get a season 2? What and it's just what are we doing? And now, and you know what? I don't know. I don't know, because just watching, I've seen some weird people give some the way they're reacting to the news of the show being canceled is just being really really weird. It is just a TV show. Again, I understand that people love the show. I understand that people enjoyed seeing something, well, I guess what they call different, but like I saw one person tweet, I don't remember the person's name, but like they're talking about how they were grieving for days after the show was canceled, and I'm just kind of like, what do you mean grieving? What? It's just a TV show. Things get canceled all the time. Again, keep in mind, like I said at the beginning, there have been plenty of TV shows that have been canceled after one season. This isn't some groundbreaking thing that's happened. Netflix does it all the time. Or, albeit with Netflix, they usually cancel their good shows and leave the bad ones. But to each their own. Uh, but it's just, it is what it is. Um, and again, it's just, I don't know what, if right now, if it's pretty much unhealthy, the Star Wars community is right now. Because I see a lot of people always talk about how they wish things were back when it was when, the Force Awakens first came out and everybody was excited to see the Force Awakens. Now, I mean, you also gotta keep in mind, from a like Star Wars movie perspective, there was really no Star Wars movie since the 2008 animated Clone Wars that dropped that year. I don't think there was anything else from that time, like for like 7 years. I don't think there was any like kind of Star Wars movie that aired in theaters. The other thing, I think maybe Star Wars, there's probably a few games going on, and then the Clone Wars series was also going on. So that's a difference, because there was it had been a while since we had something Star Wars related like on the big screen. And then the people were excited for The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian was definitely something new that a lot of people enjoyed, regardless of how you feel like the first season goes. It's still a pretty good. The first two seasons are good. Season three is kind of interesting, but I still relatively enjoyed some aspects of it. But it's just it's to a point that I don't know what fans want when it comes to Star Wars, because there's multiple camps of things. Like, do people want a good story? Do they want good characters? I remember somebody mentioned to me that they they just want to see the universe expand and not continually go back to the same thing over and over and over again. Which in reality, if what they're talking about is the whole Skywalker, era. Because if you look at the Star Wars timeline of things, the majority of the stuff Disney has put out have been revolved around um, the Skywalker era. The Acolyte was supposed to move out of that era, but to me, you didn't really do that because you had tie-ins to that area. You had references to that era. So you didn't really move away from that era. You still had it there, but you didn't use as much of it. I don't know anything about the High Republic. I probably would not ever read any of these books that are out there. That's just me. Um, I was hoping with the Acolyte that this was going to be purely a Sith related show, but it turned into like this. They claimed it as a murder mystery, but it was not. It was not a mystery whatsoever. Like a mystery doesn't make you feel bored watching it and gives you all the answers relatively quickly. It doesn't let you figure things out yourself. Um, and there are a lot of questionable things about it. Um, yeah, that I don't know. It's just a mess. Overall, Star Wars, the whole community is a mess right now. I don't know if anybody knows what they want out of Star Wars. I think some do, but I don't know if everybody can necessarily agree. I don't think anybody. Well, I think you can find a way. I think you can find a way, but it's going to take actual fans of Star Wars to be the creators of Star Wars projects, not the way Disney and Lucasfilm are doing things now, where they're hiring people who. Now, whether you believe Leslie Headland likes Star Wars or not, I don't know. I I don't necessarily care because they typically have like experts placed around them who know Star Wars and things like that to advise them on some things. But I think Star Wars needs to be, again, it's just like really any project. Star Wars needs to be handled by people who actually care about it. Plain and simple. Um, I am curious on how things will go when um the Acolyte comes out later on this year. Um, not no, I'm sorry, not the Acolyte. I'm talking about Skeleton Crew, because I mentioned a couple of weeks ago when I was doing, or yeah, a couple of weeks ago when I was doing the podcast episode review of the Acolyte. I mentioned how when we got that first trailer of Star Wars Skeleton Crew, I mentioned how I can probably see how this show could reunite the fans again. Now, again, we don't know if this is going to be a good show or not. We have no idea. And I've already seen people kind of like start to go into that mindset that that they automatically assume that if people don't like the show, they're gonna like start bad mouthing the kids of the show and stuff like that. And that's pretty much bad faith right there, because you're already assuming that there are going to be people who hate the show. There might be people, but it may not be for the reasons you are kind of like pushing into the forefront of people attacking kid actors. I don't. That's not what the case. I don't care about the kids in the show. Like, child actors they're hit or miss. If we're being honest, if we actually are honest with ourselves, child actors are kind of hit and miss in most projects. So I'm not the show doesn't hinge for me on the child actors. Now Jude Law, that's a different story, because Jude Law has been in enough projects to where I can actively say you've done better in most other projects. Um, but again, we'll see. We still got a ways to go. But overall, the state of Star Wars it's unhealthy right now. But I do believe if people will just have conversations with each other and not talk past each other and not label people as things that aren't necessarily related to what a person is complaining about, then the Star Wars community can probably move forward, because everybody loves Star Wars. And Star Wars is for, if we're gonna say Star Wars is for everybody, then you have, number one, you have to be willing to listen. You have to be willing to listen to people who may not agree with you about a TV show or a movie. If they give you valid, now if they're just like, oh, the writing's bad, that kind of thing, sure, you can challenge their perspective on why a show or movie is bad. That's fine. That's not an issue. But you cannot just automatically assume the worst when somebody says that they don't like the show. You just can't do that. If you want to be respected, you have to be willing to give respect to others, even when you don't agree with them. I disagree with a lot of people about certain things. Like the podcast episode I did, the two guests I had, I love them both. They both loved the Acolyte. I didn't like the Acolyte, but I wasn't gonna go and be like a dick to them and all this stuff. I wanted them to enjoy the ability and have the ability to talk freely about liking the show. Because I've gave plenty criticisms of the show. Like I said, I've done that with the weekly reviews and things like that. So there's not much about the show I have to say. But they automatically just go and attack people from both sides, from both sides, calling people incels and all this stuff. And like, here's the thing: you don't. Who was it? I saw somebody. I can't remember who the person was, but I think I have an idea who it was. But I'm not necessarily going to put people's accounts and stuff like that on blast. I'm not doing that. I have better things to do than do that. But I saw somebody on Twitter, and they were talking about how um, people should stop going to these grifters on YouTube who are just using hatred to make dollars. And I'm just like, they're allowed to make content on YouTube just as the same way you're allowed to make content on YouTube. Telling people, let people are not kids. They have a mind of their own. Let them make the decision for themselves. If they want to go and follow what you call grifters, that's their choice. Let them decide what they agree with, what they don't agree with. Everybody for my channel, anybody is welcome to voice their opinion. They are allowed to voice their opinion. Now, do I want you to be civilized about it? Sure. Yeah, obviously. But you're always welcome to have your opinion. Because like, whether you like, you don't have to look. again, you don't have to like people like Star Wars Theory. I've watched a lot of his stuff. I have no problems with, vast majority of the things he said and things like that. I don't have an issue with it. And see, and it's like Nerdrotic? I've watched some of his stuff. Have no problem with the stuff he says. They have valid points. They do. There are other people who've had valid points. If you're not willing to at least listen and consider their points, then you're not being fair to that, to at least your audience that watches you. Like I said, you don't have to agree with these people. Again, there's plenty of content creators I don't agree with, because I feel like the way they come out with the way they come out with the messaging of how they respond to things, it doesn't really do anything but causes more issues. So people are adults. Everybody has the free will to make their own decisions. Everybody has the free will to subscribe to whoever they want on YouTube, whether it's somebody who thinks they're, you know, Star Wars experts or what you call grifters. Everybody can subscribe to who they want to. It doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter. Um well, we'll see. Right now, yes, Star Wars is in a weird state of things at the moment. And now I've seen people talk about how, oh, they're concerned about the future of Star Wars, that like we're never gonna get anything new. But you're getting Skeleton Crew later on this year. Now, yes, Skeleton Crew takes place in, that Skywalker era, Mandoverse era kind of timeline. But you're still getting something new. We're still getting Andor season 2, which I believe is next year, I believe. You got Star Wars Outlaws coming out. Well, actually, the 3-day early access comes out tomorrow, or I guess really depending on when you're watching this. That game comes out. Uh, the Rey movie, don't really know about that. I would say this. Oh, Mandalorian Grogu coming out, I think 2026. Disney needs to like take a step back and just look at everything and just decide on what they want to do. Because listen, people have heard it time and time again. The major, the biggest group of the Star Wars community are predominantly male. Everybody knows that. Does that mean you should cater to that large majority? I think there's ways you can cater to them, but also including others. That's not an issue. I think you can do it if you do it right, if you do it respectfully. But if you go and alienate the large majority of your viewers, you're gonna end up in financial issues. So I'm trying to think what else have I seen from the Star Wars community. I've seen people from the Star Wars community talk about like they want strong, female led like characters. And and again, I'm just kind of like, you have those. You have Ahsoka, Sabine, Hera, even Asajj Ventress now, Omega, Mon Mothma, Mon Mothma, whose character is really, because of Andor, her character has fully, she's more fleshed out than what we saw in like um Return of the Jedi. What else was she in? Rogue One. She was in Rebels too. She was in the lead scene in Revenge of the Sith. I think that's pretty much the only ones I know about. Um, because of Andor, she is getting more layers added to her character. Bo-Katan. I mean, need I say more about her? Uh, and so I mean, it's there's a way to do it. I believe there is a way that you can make everybody happy, but you have to put the people who love Star Wars in the creator position. Give them the tools that they need to make a good Star Wars project, whether it's a movie, whether it's an animation, whether it's a TV show. Because if you make a good project, people are going to. Now, I'm not saying it has to be perfect. I'm sure there will always be issues. But if you make a good project, the people will support it. The people will watch it. You can do it. You definitely can do it. But we'll see though. We will see. So it's gonna be interesting to see how things shape out. Like I said, with Skeleton Crew coming out later on this year, December 3rd. Interested to see on how the reception for Star Wars Outlaw goes. But yeah. But all right, guys, that's pretty much all I have. Like I said, I just wanted to like get on here. It wasn't as quick as I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. I just wanted to just come on and just talk a little bit, just give my thoughts about the whole state of Star Wars, and what the future looks like for it. But I would love to hear you guys' thoughts. So be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Be sure to comment below. Like I said, I want to hear you guys' thought about the state of Star Wars and things like that. But other than that, guys, be sure to hit that, like I said, hit that like and subscribe button, comment below. But I will see you guys on Wednesday as we jump right back into Star Wars: The Knights of the Old Republic. And other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. See you.